Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Whitney. I'm originally from Canada, but I've been living in Mexico for the last 8 years. And today I'm going to be sharing why I moved to Mexico, what I do for work that allows me to live here before retirement age, and also what it's like to live in the city of Guadalajara. The city of Guadalajara is located in central western Mexico in the state of Jalisco. And Jalisco is the birthplace of tequila and mariachis and all of those things that we think about when Mexico comes to mind. It is a very large city. We have about 5.5 million people in this area. It's either the second or third largest city in Mexico, depending on which stats you're looking at. And one of my favorite things about this area is the climate. The city is located at 1,500 meters or 5,000 feet, and I've been surprised with how stable the climate has been year-round. The daytime highs are usually around 28 degrees, dropping down to 12 or 15 degrees at night, which is great because you can open up the windows and cool everything down and have a great sleep. Before moving to Guadalajara, I actually spent the first 7 years of my time here in Mexico living in Puerto Vallarta. The reason why I decided to move from Puerto Vallarta to Guadalajara actually came down to the climate. During the first few years, it was okay. I was willing to put up with the hot, sticky summers that felt like they never ended. They last about 7 months of the year. As the years went on, I found myself looking less and less forward to the summer times. And I also noticed that it was starting to affect the way that I was living. I wasn't going out to walk as much. I really dreaded going out because I knew I'd come back hot, sticky, sweaty, and needing to have a shower. And it happened that our landlord let us know that she was going to be selling the house, and my husband and I decided that it was a really good opportunity for us to try something that was radically different, both in terms of the climate and also in terms of the way of living. Obviously, Puerto Vallarta being a smaller city, 300,000 people, versus Guadalajara, 5.5 million, the way of living, the way that you entertain yourself and get around, it all changes. And to speak a little bit about adjusting to a new country and a new city, when I first arrived to Mexico, I found that the biggest adjustment for me was really in terms of shopping and understanding how the world worked here in Mexico. As someone coming from North America, I typically went to the grocery store once a week, bought everything that I needed from 1 or 2 stores, and that was it. Here in Mexico, one of the things that I feel is a real charm and part of the culture is how many small businesses there are and independent vendors that are just selling things on the street. And I realized very quickly that the freshest ingredients really come from these small vendors. Whether you're going to a fruteria, like a fruit store that's in your neighborhood, or there's some guys selling strawberries going down the street, those are really going to be the freshest sources of the ingredients that you're looking for. Or, of course, you can head to the pop-up markets. Another thing that I realized is everybody is on WhatsApp. So if you ever run into somebody and you think that you'd like to have contact with them again to buy whatever it is that they're selling, you need to get their WhatsApp number so that you can get into contact with them. This also applies for someone coming to your house, for example, to refill your gas tank. You can actually send them a message versus calling up the main company, and it means that you're going to get better and faster service. So once you learn to really build out this network of service providers and people that you need to have contact with, I believe that it's much more convenient than how we tend to do things in North America. Of course, there is the language barrier that you need to deal with, and learning Spanish will be critical when you're having those types of connections with the locals. All right, so let me tell you about a typical week for me living here in Mexico. Because I'm still a working person, I have my own small business. I spend most of my days in this room where I'm recording from right now. And after I'm finished, I really just like to get out of the house and go for a walk around my neighborhood. I love how the streets here in Guadalajara, they're full of trees, there's lots of shade, and there's always interesting things to see. So that's really what I look forward to at the end of the day. I also love to cook at home using the beautiful ingredients that I got from the market, so I usually do that. And then it's just chilling out time. It's the weekends where all of the fun happens. And every week that I'm here in Guadalajara and discovering new things, I'm realizing that this place is like a treasure chest with things that are ready to be explored. Being such a big city, there is always something to do here, and there's a lot of events that are really only going to be in largely populated areas. For example, just in the last 8 months, we've seen 3 artists that I never thought I was going to have the opportunity to see. But realizing anybody who's doing an international tour is likely going to stop in Mexico City, Guadalajara, or Monterrey means that we're still going to be able to see our favorite artists even though we're living in Mexico. The city tends to decorate downtown for specific events as well. Right now, they have all of the historic buildings illuminated with beautiful lights and decorations for Christmas time. There's a gigantic Christmas tree. It's a great place to go for some interesting pictures. Just last month for Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead, this is a very important holiday in Mexico and it's celebrated over several weeks. But we decided to go to a paid event called Calaverandia, which is a tribute to this holiday. And they had a display of a cemetery, for example, that had all of the traditional decorations. There were various different shows, including a mariachi performance on an altar with all of the different decorations. And one of my favorite things was this 4D light show. I've never seen anything like it in my life, but they projected onto a water feature and there was music and dancers and they were telling the story and the history of the Dia de Muertos holiday and what the significance is for each of the things that we typically see. One of my favorite things to do, especially on the weekends on Sunday, is to go check out the local markets. These are known as tianguis here in Mexico. And for me, I like to go to pick up the ingredients that I need for the week. You're going to find all of the fruits and vegetables and meat. And I love to see the seasonal things that they have because it changes a little bit each time that you go to the market. So you can pick up those things and enjoy cooking and eating them for that period of time that they're around. But at these tianguis markets, you're going to find everything. It's not just fruits and vegetables. People come here to sell new clothes, used clothes, sunglasses, kitchen supplies. You can even find used parts for your blender if that's what you want. You name it, it's probably there at the tianguis. And these things range in size. They have, they kind of go from a few city blocks, maybe 3 or 4 blocks, all the way up to a market I discovered last week called El Barretillo. This one spans, believe it or not, 60 city blocks. It is so big, there is no way that you can explore it all in one day. But man, the food that we had there and the prices that were available were just absolutely mind-blowing. So you cannot miss the markets of Guadalajara. Even if you're coming here just as a tourist, they are absolutely worth exploring. And sometimes I just want to get out of the city and disconnect a little bit. And some of my favorite areas to go are the hot springs that are just on the outskirts of the city, usually. That's a great way to just disconnect, be in nature, soak in some hot water for a while. Or I love to go to El Bosque de la Primavera, which is called Spring Forest. And this is a forest that from my house, it takes about 45 minutes to drive there. but literally when you are in this forest, you feel like you're 1,000 miles away from the city. All you can hear are the birds chirping. It's a beautiful pine forest, and it brings you this instant relaxation. We love to go there to cook some food, hang up our hammocks, and just hang out for a few hours. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I am a foodie. Not only do I love good food in the house, but I love to go to great restaurants. And coffee is something that's very important to me as well. Here in Guadalajara, we have some of the best beans I've ever found. There are baristas and roasteries that have award-winning beans. The flavor of the coffee is just exceptional, and the coffee game is really high here, as well as the culinary scene. In addition to the traditional dishes that they have, such as birria and pozole and the famous torta ahogada, here in Guadalajara, you're also going to find a lot of international restaurants, everything from Korean barbecue to French, Italian. We have Vietnamese, Indian. We have it all. There's a wide variety, and the restaurants really are exceptional with the quality and the flavor that they're putting together. So I am just getting started and breaking into my foodie world here with the different discoveries, but so far I have not been disappointed. All right, so let's talk about why I chose the neighborhood that I'm living in and talk a little bit about the cost of living in this area. So for us, because moving to Guadalajara is a bit of an experiment, just trying to see if living in a big city is something that we want to do long term, we wanted to make sure that we were in a very central location and really to have the best experience that we could during this year to help us make that decision. So we decided to move to a neighborhood called Colonia Ladrón de Guevara. And this is very close to Chapultepec and Colonia Americana, which is a trendy part of the city. It's full of little cafes, lots of excellent restaurants. We have craft breweries and a lot of interesting things within this area. It's a well-connected part of the city. We have a bus that runs in front of our apartment that can take you down to the light rail train, which gets you across the city very quickly. We also have all of these little bicycle rental stations where you can rent a bike per hour from one location, ride it to wherever you want, and then drop it off again. With all of that connectivity, we hardly need to use our vehicle at all. We usually use it just for shopping for convenience, or if we're wanting to get out a little bit further to explore. This area is also known for being relatively safe, and we were able to find an apartment in a building that is a brand new construction that has a lot of amenities such as 24-hour security downstairs. We have a gym that's literally directly across the hall from us. We have a rooftop patio that allows us to have spectacular sunsets and really enjoy the views of the city. The apartment that we're renting is a 2-bedroom apartment. It's approximately 90 square meters, and it also has a balcony outside that has enough space for our gas barbecue grill and a couple of chairs, which is a really nice feature of this apartment. Our rent is $1,000 per month, which is definitely on the high side, and it's directly related to the location that we are in this city. I do believe that you can find other rentals in this area for less if you have time to shop around and if it's an older construction. Keep in mind, all of the costs that I'm talking about are for 2 people. For our groceries, we spend about $250 per month, and we spend about the same dining out at restaurants. Our utilities, which includes the internet, gas, and electricity, works out to about $100 per month, and our vehicle with the gas, the insurance, and the maintenance is another $100 per month. We do have a private health insurance plan, which is about $200 per month for both of us, but most of the time we just pay privately because the doctors here, to see a specialist, it's maybe $40. You can go to a doctor that works next to a pharmacy for prescription for just a few dollars to get what you need. So everything is pretty affordable. We haven't really needed our insurance up to this point. In total, our baseline expenses work out to about $2,000 per month. And if we have something interesting that we're doing, like going on a trip, or maybe there's an event that we want to see, we may spend up to $2,500 per month. So now I'd like to share a little bit about why I chose Mexico and how I managed to get here, especially before retirement age. And it all started when I was back in my 20s, going on vacations once a year for a couple of weeks and realizing very quickly that 2 weeks was never enough. And I wanted to find a way to live abroad. I didn't want this to be my vacation. I wanted it to be my life. And I knew that in order for me to do that, I needed to figure out a way to earn money online. And this was around the time that I started to subscribe to International Living, the magazine that they mailed to you every single month. And I just remember finding a lot of inspiration in the stories and learning about the different countries and places that I could live. And one of the things that stood out to me was the cost of living in most of the countries was about 25% of what it was in Canada. And that's when I realized that if I was to start an online business doing I don't know what, but whatever I did, I would only need to earn 25% of what I would need to earn to support myself in Canada. And that made me feel that it was much closer or something within reach that I could actually strive for. It was back in 2016 that I finally had my opportunity to move abroad to Mexico. And this was not something that was really straightforward. It was a little bit messy, but I was able to make it happen. 6 years previous, we had purchased our first home and there was a huge increase in the market. And we realized that if we sold our house, that there would be $45,000 US available. And with those calculations of the lower cost of living, I knew that that was enough to live in Mexico for a 2-year period of time. And I figured that that was enough time for me to figure out how to make a living online. Now, the reason why we chose Mexico was mostly due to the ease of travel between Mexico and Canada. And also upon doing research, I knew I wanted to live on the coast. I knew the city size I was looking for, and Puerto Vallarta came up as a place that was really attractive to me. So the big problem with this plan is that I still didn't have a reliable income source and I didn't know how I was going to support myself. I still needed to figure out a business idea. And one of the things that came to me was actually related back to several years earlier when I had started to take Spanish in high school. And during that time, I realized that I really enjoyed learning languages. I wasn't very good at it, but it was something that I liked to do. And through several years, I had been studying different online courses, using apps, taking private lessons, doing all sorts of different things to try to improve my Spanish. And of course, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, one day I'm going to move abroad. I need to keep working on Spanish. So I thought, okay, well, clearly I need to improve my speaking and listening. How can I do that? And the first thing that occurred to me was conversational Spanish, right? If I could listen to some sort of audio where native speakers are interacting and there was some sort of script, I'd be able to understand what they're saying and try to figure out where the gaps are. So one of the first things that I realized was the vocabulary that we use in spoken Spanish was completely different from what I was learning in those textbooks. And by learning the right vocabulary and really a core set of vocabulary, I started to be able to understand more of what I was hearing. And when I needed to speak, it felt like the words that I needed were a lot more accessible. And this was the most exciting time in my Spanish because in less than a year, I was able to get up to an advanced level where I could easily understand and easily communicate. So to plot this onto the timeline with selling my house, Unfortunately, I was only halfway through this Spanish thing, so that wasn't something that I could use as a business. But what I had figured out was the methodology. And I decided to turn to my native language, English, to try to help people learning that language to develop their skills following the same technique. And my husband and I decided to start Real English Conversations. And we had a podcast, and through that, we found students. They were purchasing memberships on our website, and we were also able to teach private lessons. And that allowed us that initial funding that we needed to stay in Mexico. And while it was really fun doing that sort of business, and our podcast, for example, it has 4 million downloads a year. It's one of the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. So we're very proud of that fact and the impact that we've had on English learners. For me, my calling, my passion, and where I really wanted to bring something to the world was helping people to overcome Spanish and the challenges that they were having. And I decided, you know what? I got to make a course on this. And that's when I started expatspanishlessons.com. Just to wrap up with a bit of advice for anybody that's coming to Mexico, something that I wish I knew when I first arrived. I think that it is important to be flexible with where you think you want to live. You're really not going to know until you spend a significant amount of time there. But a lot of us, we really get married to this idea that we've done the research. This must be exactly where I want to live. It sounds great. But when we're there, it's a different experience than what we expected. Now, it may not be just that Mexico isn't the country for you. It might be that city. It might be that climate. It might be that you need something smaller or bigger. So having this flexibility in your mind right from the beginning that you're going to move, you're going to try it out for a while, just kind of get familiar with how things work here in Mexico, but also having that flexibility and willingness to explore other places. You can do that initially through traveling around and just taking note of places that you really enjoyed. And if you're finding that you're not as fond of the place that you originally landed, be brave, uproot, and give something else a try. For me personally, I'm not sure that I want to stay in Guadalajara forever. It's a great city, but I think really at the end of the day, I'd love to spend half the year in Puerto Vallarta when the climate is gorgeous. I love that city. It is in my heart. It always will be. And I'm always going to be drawn back to it. But when the climate is not really what I'm looking for, I would enjoy Guadalajara. It's just different. There's a lot to do here, and it's a different way of living. So I encourage you to just be open-minded and have an adventurous spirit as you explore this beautiful country and the culture. And I hope that you enjoyed this interview.